The Democratic Republic of Congo says it will not rule out giving the U.S. access to its vast mineral wealth in return for security guarantees. The statement comes as the M23 armed group, backed by Rwanda, continues its advance in the eastern part of the DRC. The rebels have seized territory, including the main cities of Goma and Bukavu, in recent months. The Congolese government accuses the M23 and Rwanda of stealing its natural resources and is urging other countries, including the U.S., not to buy minerals from Rwanda. DW's Jonas Gerding asked the DRC's Minister of Communications and Media about reports that his country would consider allowing the U.S. privileged access to its mineral wealth in return for some form of security.
Nothing is bad if among those partners we want to exploit our mineral resources, we have Americans. I think that was the main idea for the president. In here, actually, we have Chinese, we have Japanese, we have other countries from, I think, from India or from Switzerland. We are working with mineral resources. How come we cannot have American? You know what is happening now? Because Rwanda keeps stealing, and other companies working with Rwandan side are doing it in bad way because those minerals are linked to assassination of innocent people, linked to massacre, linked to all those bad things. What we've been doing is to clean all the process. That's one of the reasons President Kagame is doing his war, because we start cleaning the process to keep control under our, keep control of our mineral resources.
Would it be possible to think of a kind of deal between the DRC and the United States of America, where minerals, the United States will get access to minerals, and in return there might be security guarantees? It
will depend of the discussion between two parties. If
but you don't rule it out.
Any interest, it will be, of course, discussion. One thing is clear in DRC: we need, of course, to have security. If this security can come from some partnership with United States, it's not bad.
And for more on this, we're joined now by Géraud Neema. He's a non-resident scholar in the Carnegie Africa program and joins us from Port Louis, Mauritius. Now, we just heard the DRC's Minister of Communications talking about providing access to strategic minerals in exchange for security, possibly from the U.S. What are you hearing about the prospects for a deal?
The prospects for a deal is quite a long-term process before getting to them. The DRC proposal is coming amidst the US-China competition over critical minerals. If we look into the letters that the lobbies that the DRC government has hired in Washington, who's been sent to Marco Rubio and other policymakers in DC, you realize that it's really dovetailing into everything related to the China-US competition about critical minerals. So the DRC is really trying to incentivize and to give enough impetus to the US government to intervene into the DRC, because the DRC can offer the US what it's been looking for: access to critical minerals on one hand and blocking and containing China expansion on the other hand. So that's the idea behind the proposal. So how likely is that to happen? It's something else, because it's not going to depend only to the US government, but it's going to depend a lot more from the US private sector. And so far, the US private sector hasn't shown any strong interest into investing in the DRC under the current circumstances.
Now, the M23 rebels have seized a large portion of DRC's mineral-rich east, displacing hundreds of thousands of people. The area has been subject to conflict for a long time. The UN calls it one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. What could a deal with the U.S. mean for security in that region, Christian?
The deal for the DRC, from the logic from the DRC, would mean the fact that having access to DRC critical minerals, incentivizing US to build maybe military bases in the DRC, having access to the region in a way that the US can put enough political pressure on Rwanda, just like they did in 2012 and 13, to withdraw from the support from the M23 and to withdraw from the DRC as well. So for the region, this kind of deal, if it comes to fruition, if it's really well implemented, can maybe create a context where the United States becomes the one guaranteeing U.S. DRC security against any enemies, foreign enemies. I think, and the deal is really mirroring what we've seen and an attempt that we've seen happening between Ukraine and the United States. That's basically the blueprint that the DRC is looking into for the region.
More broadly, the DRC's communications minister in that interview said his country is seeking to diversify its partners. So tell us, Christian, who are the DRC's current partners?
DRC current partners, the main partners, when you look into the mining sectors, are China. China is basically the one having the stronghold into cobalt and copper in southern part of the DRC, in the Katanga region. But also China is present in the supply chain of the mineral east and the mining coming from the eastern part of the DRC in terms of final destination. When you look into coltan, tin, cassiterite coming out of the DRC, the end destination is China, where there are smelters that are transformed. So China is a key element here in the supply chain of minerals in the DRC. But strangely enough, the DRC didn't approach China into playing the role of guaranteeing that security, because I do believe that they know that China doesn't interfere into internal politics, so there's no much of incentive for China to intervene. So the idea now is to bring other partners, maybe the US, as I've mentioned earlier, because of the US-China tension, giving the US enough incentive to want to intervene in the DRC situation.
Christian, thank you very much for your insights. That was Christian Géraud Neema of the Carnegie Africa Program.
Thank you, Terry.